In the second episode of our Retellings Masterclass, we're going to be breaking down how you can be brainstorming your retelling and create effective characters inside of your stories. Now, if you have not watched episode 1, we broke down everything that goes into creating your retelling, researching, making sure you're avoiding copyright infringement, and making sure you've developed a really cool, really strong twist on your story. So if you have not seen that episode, go back and watch that one first, and then rejoin us as we talk about brainstorming and creating your characters for your retellings. Now, as we jump into this conversation, keep in mind, everybody's going to be a little bit different in the way that they're creating, they're plotting, they're figuring out their stories, and developing what they're creating inside of the retelling that they're telling. So, I am going to be breaking down some of the most important things to know, but be aware you do not have to do it how I do it or how any other author does it. I've got a full series on Show Me How You Write here on the YouTube channel that breaks down how I, on screen, everything that I do within my writing so that you can steal what I do and see if it's going to be a good fit for you. But I also have my author friends on this show. So you can learn from me and a whole bunch of other authors on how each of us individually creates our stories so that you can pick and choose the elements that work for you to cobble together your own writing strategy to make sure you're successfully writing your story. So, as we're breaking this down, do not feel like you have to do it one way because you heard somebody say it. You can do it the way that works best for you. And we're going to break down exactly how you can be figuring that out for yourself as well. So, now we need to know, what is your story's twist? At this point, we have given you the homework of creating your story and your twist ideas. So, what is that you're going to be doing for your story's twist? We mentioned that I've done all sorts of interesting things by putting characters in different settings or in different locations, making sure that they have different genders. We've gender swapped things. We've also changed their motives for going to a location. So Goldilocks was never naive. She was sent on a mission to get information about the bear family and destroy them. Cinderella didn't go to the palace because she wanted to attend a ball. She went there because she's an assassin set out to destroy the prince and his father, the king. We know that Aladdin is being tossed into a steampunk world and making the effort to steal an airship as part of a competition that he needs to win in order to get him and his mother out of the country and away from his evil uncle. We know that our Little Mermaid was a human who was forced into the sea and is now trapped under the water fighting to get her legs back because the sea witch wants to silence her, but not for the reasons you think. So we're taking our twists on our stories and we're going to be fleshing those out today. If you do not have your twist decided, you need to pause what you're doing and figure it out right now. We're going to be writing down your twist, and all the things that you implement into this will change your story. So if you change your location or your gender or your motives or your whatever it happens to be, you are going to then be able to flesh that out to figure out what is going to be best for you. Now, as you have your twist, this then changes who your character is or how they are. You're going to change their personality. You are going to change the time that they've grown up in. If it's way back in the past or way in the future, it's going to dictate who these characters are and how you're going to be creating them. So once you have your twist, you now need to start your character creation and your world building Bibles. So let me break this down for you. And you're going to see this over in the Show Me How You Write series. A lot of us do this, and it's really beneficial for you to do it as well. If you are a new author, I highly recommend that you be doing this because it helps you to understand who your characters are and track things along the way. So a character Bible, and this is going to go for your world building as well. We're just going to talk about the character version for now, but you're going to implement a secondary one for your world building too. A character Bible is going to be a running list of everything you need to know about your characters. So the way that I construct it is I have a Word document on my screen at all times. I've got 3 main documents. You can see them in my episode of Show Me How You Write, and one of them is my character Bible list. I'll have the character name first and last if they have that, middle name if they have that as well. And then I've got a little dash, and then I just start listing things out. Now, you can get very detailed about this. You can be very form about this, or you can just kind of list things out. I just list things out, but I will list their hair color, their hair length, eye color. I'll list if they're tall or they're short, if they've got a specific height. I'll talk about the clothing that they wear, if they have very specific clothing. If there's any words or phrases that they say a lot, I'll write that down. I write down any friend connections or family connections. So if they've got siblings or cousins or whatever, I'll write those things down. Anytime it comes up as I'm writing something, I add it new. So as I'm starting to build this, I'm going to have information I already know about this character written down. Then, as I'm creating my story, I add to it, which comes into play when I am tracking things that happen to my characters along the way. Let's say someone gets injured and they've got a cut on their forehead now. If I forget that in an upcoming scene, that's going to be a problem. So, anytime they get an injury, I'm writing this down in my character Bible so I can refer back to it. Now, bonus points for writing where it happens. So, if it happens in chapter 11, I will probably note that it's in chapter 11. I'll also put this into my timeline to make sure I'm tracking things. That's a second document that I have up on my screen with a running timeline of everything that's happening inside of my story. But again, watch my episode for that one. So I'm writing down everything related to my character so that I can easily track it. Now, bonus pro tip here, as you're doing this and creating this character Bible, this makes it easier to refer back to after you're done with your story, because now you have a full profile that you can be putting on your website and on social media for fans in the future to do character art and cosplays of your characters. You don't have to go look it up. They don't have to go look it up. And it means you're going to get more interaction from your fans, and you're going to get more character art and more cosplays in the future because you make it easy for them. This is also really good as people are deciding if there's going to be a model on your cover or whatever it happens to be. If you can be very specific about what these characters look like, you're going to get a more effective marketing for you in the future. So you're creating a character Bible that has everything listed down in it. And you can be as detailed or as non-detailed as you want, but the more details you have, the easier it becomes to market later and to make sure you're not dealing with any plot holes or errors or issues as you go. So create that list of characters, and I usually start with my main character, whoever is being introduced first, and then I just kind of list them in order of importance and then in order of appearance. So I will not go out of my way to categorize them too much in terms of importance, but anybody in the main character realm is going to be toward the top. So let's just say I introduce my leading lady. She'll be the first one. Obviously, we're going to have our main characters as the first one, but if the significant other doesn't get introduced until chapter 5 or 6, which, wow, that means I don't want it lower on my list. I still want to bump that character up toward the top. So anybody that's going to be an important character that we're going to see an awful lot, I'll put toward the top of my list. And then the supporting cast down below in the order of appearance. But you also want to do this for your world building. So if you're creating a town or a city or specific buildings or, different characteristics of the world in which they live, list those down below as well. Now, you can have different documents for this, but for the sake of ease, I tend to put it in one for me. So I have all my characters up top and then any world building things that I need down below. Now, world building Bibles are going to be incredibly important as you're building magical structures or systems, as you are building dystopian futures, anything that's not in our contemporary setting that we don't necessarily live every single day is going to be important to write down to make sure you stay within the parameters of the world you're creating. So the more that you create with this, the easier it's going to become for you to understand your world and then to flesh it out as well, because you want to make sure that you are taking into consideration what you've created and don't create any extra work in the form of plot holes for yourself. So create your character Bible, create your world building Bible, and you're going to learn a lot about your characters before you even write your story. Then you can add to it as you go. Now, you also want to make sure you're tracking what you're doing. So a story tracker is going to be incredibly important. I mentioned that a minute ago. One of the other documents I have up on my screen is a running timeline of everything that happened. And you can do this in whatever form you need to do this in. For me, what I do is I will create a document. And it says chapter 1 dash, and then the page number it starts on. Obviously, that'll be page 1, but let's just say chapter 2 dash page 10 of my Word document. Now, inside of this, I list a bullet point list of everything that I am going to be writing inside of this story. If you're a plotter, you've already got this figured out. We're going to talk about this in an upcoming episode of this masterclass, but you're going to have everything listed out, and then you just have to write it. Makes it really easy for you. If you're a pantser, you're going to have things written down as you go. You're going to add things, and then you're going to add in your chapter numbers. Now, if you're a planter like me, you're going to have certain things that are already there, but also figure some things out as you go. So you're going to have those chapters, you're going to add in your timeline as you go, but you also have major points that you can then just bump up as needed. So if you have the beginning, the middle, the end, and some stepping stones in between, list all those things out and then lower them down on your timeline and bump them back up as needed. Again, watch my episode. I show you exactly how I do that. And it's going to save you a lot of time and effort if you are tracking this. If you have to go back and find something, to change something, or to fix a plot hole, or to make sure you know exactly what you're doing inside of your story, you just want to double check on things, or if somebody asks you later on if this is in a certain chapter or where to find these things, it's going to be a lot easier for you to then find things inside of your story so you don't have to flip through a bunch of pages to eventually get there. So creating a story tracker is going to be incredibly important. Whatever you want to call that, a timeline, you can change however you need it. When I'm writing these things, my Word document is in the middle. On the right side of my screen, I've got my story tracker or my timeline. And then on the left side of my screen, I have all of my character notes. That's a really easy way for me to organize and see everything while I am writing to make sure I'm writing effectively and as strategically as possible. And you can steal that from me, or you can change and do your own way of doing this, or check out any of those other authors because they've all got great systems as well. But you want to make sure that you have some type of running timeline, because otherwise it's going to be a lot of extra work after the fact. If you are going to be publishing this story indie or traditionally, this just saves you a ton of time and effort, and it helps a lot in the editing process as well. Now, we want to make sure that you are using this in your homework this time. So if you are taking the day or if you're taking the week, I want your next homework step to be to plan out your main characters. You know your story. You know your twist. You know where you're setting this story. Now you need to plan out your main characters. So create your character Bible. I want your main character. I want your potential love interest. If you are writing a story with a love interest, I am here for the love interest. So please. But we want to make sure that you've also got any other main characters, and then you can start working on some of your supporting characters. Now, there may be characters that come up along the way that you did not anticipate. I once had a character show up in the middle of the Jaded Duology's first book, and he was supposed to have a couple of lines and then leave. He was just supposed to say those lines, and he forced his way not only into a bigger role, but into a main character role. This man took over the story and was absolutely essential to the entire rest of that novel and the entire rest of that series. And I didn't see it coming. I had no idea until he showed up on the page, said his lines, and then demanded a larger role. So if you have to add in more characters later on, that's fine. You're not stuck adhering to the list of characters you create right now, but you are fleshing out your main characters. So your main character, any love interest, any villains that you're going to be putting in here, and any, super important supporting cast, you should be fleshing this out. Keep in mind, we're not going overboard on characters. It is hard to track characters in stories, so the less characters you can have, the easier it's going to be for people to understand and to follow and for you to write. So don't go crazy with this. We don't need 17 main characters or supporting characters. Try 5. You want to make sure you keep this as condensed as possible as you're writing your story to make it more effective. But I want you right now, before you watch the next episode, to plan out those characters. Descriptions physically, things that they say, things that they do, thoughts that you have about them and how they're going to interact with each other. Put these all on your list and have it ready to go for our next episode. We are going to be plotting out and planning your story in the next episode. So this is a really good one to figure out what works best for you. Because again, people will tell you you have to do it this way, or you see an author who does it this way and you feel like you have to, and that might not work for you. So in the next episode, we're going to be talking about strategies and theories and processes for plotting and planning out your story to make sure you're writing effectively for you so that your story actually gets out in the world and you're not taking months and months and months to write your story. We want to make sure we're streamlining this process and giving you the best creative advantage possible. So I will see you in the next episode as we start plotting out and planning your story in the most effective way for you personally.